Coming up next, we're going to celebrate truly an underrated masterpiece that deserves recognition for both its impact on the music industry and its timeless lyrics and musicianship. It's truly one of the most accomplished albums of the 80s by an artist whose achievements never got the credit that he deserved. In the early 80s, there were only 2 musical acts that had 4 hits from one album. One was Michael Jackson, but the second one is going to surprise you. A reluctant star who could have had dozens of hits had he chosen to. Get the story of the most underappreciated artist of his time and his 1981 masterpiece coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember this ad growing up, you're gonna dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the bell, click the big red button so you always know when our latest and greatest come out. We have some amazing interviews coming out. As you've seen, we have even more coming out. Also, check out our Patreon below and our merch. That helps us to keep it a daily channel. So excited about today's episode. One of my favorite artists ever. It's time for another edition of our show, Number One in Our Hearts. This is where we honor songs that were so unbelievably spectacular, they absolutely should have been number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. But, you know, for whatever reason, be it radio play, label support, lack of marketing, or just sheer stupidity, the song came up a little bit short. Today's edition, though, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Instead of just a song that should have been number 1, I want to celebrate an album that should have been number 1. It was a massive record in its time, with several songs that came off of it that had become all-time standards. Now, I got close. It crested at number 6, but I'm talking about this record right here, The Innocent Age by Dan Fogelberg. And actually, it was the most successful album of the legend Dan Fogelberg's career. Arguably one of the most unheralded blockbusters of the entire rock era. This deep and inspired record featured 4 hit singles, making Dan the only artist other than Michael Jackson to have 4 hits off of one album in the years 1980 to 1982. Like I said, it had another 3 top 10 singles and then a 4th that went top 20. These hits were Same Old Lang Syne, leader of the band, Hard to Say, and Run for the Roses.
The band is tired and his eyes are growing old. It's hard to say where love went wrong. Run for the roses so bad.
Man, The Innocent Age is such a fantastic song cycle, perfectly produced. It kicks off with this gorgeous acoustic guitar strum and Nexus. It just sparkles. Then the song takes off at a quick pace, and the lyrics are just so smooth. Dan was easily one of the most underappreciated lyricists of his era. No filler in this song cycle. Just listen to poetic lines like, "Across the vein of night, there cuts a path of searing light, burning like a beacon on the edges of our sight."
Burning like a beacon on the edges of our sight.
It's all about that moment when total darkness meets the divine light, and you can feel the soul just reaching out. That kind of out-of-body lyricism is one of Dan Fogelberg's greatest gifts to us. Plus, Joni Mitchell adds her beautiful backing vocals, which just makes it even better artistically.
Wealthy the spirit that knows its own flight.
And then that follows up with the title track, The Innocent Age, and that really keeps that vibe going. It's dedicated to Buffalo Springfield, which Richie Furay from that band adds some beautiful harmonies. And I'm mesmerized by the line, "Storybook endings never appear. They're just someone's way of leading us here." It really captures that feeling.
Storybook endings never appear.
I mean, just those first couple of songs, Dan sets up the album's main theme that runs through 80 minutes of just blissful alchemy.
Trust someone's way of leading us here.
It's a deep dive into life's journey, not just about the passage from the cradle to the grave, like he sings in the passage, but also about the wisdom and questions that we pick up along the way.
In the passage from the cradle to the grave.
I mean, a lot of times it feels like the more we learn, the less we actually know. And Dan sums this up perfectly in Lost in the Sun, where he sings, "Every night I ask myself that same old question, why? And every day the answer seems more distant." It's like he always knew those final truths were hiding beneath the lies, but they're tougher to uncover than he might have realized.
Every night I ask myself that same old question.
The idea for the album had been brewing in Fogelberg's mind for quite a while. Back on June 17, 1978, during an interview with the Colorado Springs Gazette-Telegraph, Dan shared his thoughts with reporter George Gladden. He said, and I quote, "I know what the album is going to feel like. It will be a theme album, and it will be very uncommercial. I flash on it from time to time." Now, interestingly enough, Dan's prediction about it being uncommercial, even very uncommercial, turned out to be way off the mark. The album soared, hit number 6 on the charts. It sold enough copies to go double platinum. Now, the essence of The Innocent Age was inspired by the writings of Thomas Wolfe, found in his novel Of Time and the River. It was the sequel to his incredible first novel, Look Homeward, Angel. Now, Time and the River is also a classic of American literature. The book follows Eugene Gant, Wolfe's autobiographical character, as he grows up and he searches for meaning in his life. You see him move from his small-town roots in North Carolina to the bustling world of Harvard University, New York City, even Europe. It's really a journey of self-discovery that captures the quest for fulfillment. Man, in many ways, Thomas Wolfe's reflections mirror Dan's journey from the heartland of America to Los Angeles to pursue a career in music. There's definitely many parallels there. Now, despite achieving success, there's something missing, some inexplicable emptiness that emerges. Again, part of the soulful depth of the material that makes Dan's album such a masterpiece.
In those starry moments.
Now, technically, the lead single from The Innocent Age was Same Old Lang Syne. Just a masterpiece. It had been released the previous November and it climbed to number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100. Now, that ranking doesn't come close to how meaningful that song has been to millions of fans, especially during the holiday season. Now, we've covered this song in detail, but briefly, it weaves a poignant tale of unexpectedly running into an old girlfriend on Christmas Eve, capturing a moment that many of us not only can relate to, but we feel like we're actually witnessing. That's how great the song is. That's probably why it's so personal to us. But it's a song that really happened. In the mid-70s, Dan was home in Illinois visiting his parents over the holidays, and on Christmas Eve, he went to a local convenience store to pick up some, I think it was whipping cream to make Irish coffee. And that's where he bumped into his old girlfriend, and, a story unfolded from there. He and his ex share their lives, plus a 6-pack of beer, and some real truth comes from that.
And we laughed until we cried.
Though his former high school sweetheart is married, it's not a happy one. Not a happy marriage. And
But she didn't like to lie.
Dan shares he loves performing his music, but he hates being on the road. And they drink a toast to innocence into the present time, but all they find in this moment is emptiness.
And try to reach beyond the emptiness.
Now, the ending lyric is one of the greatest of the 80s, where Dan and his ex, they say their goodbyes with a kiss. And as he watches her drive away, he sings, "Just for a moment I was back at school and felt that old familiar pain. And as I turned to make my way back home, the snow turned into rain." And of course, the story ends with that gorgeous Michael Brecker soprano saxophone. And he brings back a hint of Thomas Wolfe with the song mastering the expression, "You can't go home again." I swear, every time I hear this song, there's a little bit of a tear that comes here. His voice is so pure, and the way he sings it, I can't say enough about it. The Innocent Age also features a Dan Fogelberg duet with the legendary talent of Emmylou Harris on Only the Heart May Know, as another special part of the album.
And we knew
And then the late Eagle Glenn Frey contributes a passionate backup vocal on Hard to Say. So cool. That was the second single from The Innocent Age that peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100. Also 3 weeks at number 2 on the Adult Contemporary chart in 81. It was Dan's biggest hit in Canada, where it went to number 16 on the pop chart. It also went to number 1 on the Canadian AC chart.
Hard to say just when it's so hard to say.
Dan wrote Hard to Say while he was recovering from surgery. It's definitely a tender, misty-eyed ballad about one of life's greatest mysteries. How did a love go wrong? My favorite passage, though, has got to be in verse 4. It's never easy and it's never clear who's to navigate and who's to steer. And so you flounder, drifting ever near the rocks. I love it.
Who's to navigate and who's to steer?
The track features revered musician Tom Scott executing a sax section that accentuates the sad emotional resonance of the track as well as the breathtaking elegance of the album. It's one of those songs that instantly takes you back to the early 80s. You know, when our world was a little bit simpler, a little bit slower paced. Man, the comfort of Dan's voice is a gift that has gotten all of us through so many hard times. And Glenn Frey on the track too. I love it. It's just such a great marriage of the two voices. Even if it isn't a pure duet, that would have been a great thing to hear a duet by those guys. Then the third hit single from The Innocent Age was, of course, Leader of the Band, a powerful tribute Dan composed for his father. In keeping with his belief that the songs on the LP were really not going to be commercial, when Dan wrote Leader of the Band, he didn't hear it as a hit. But the song managed to express something that a lot of people find hard to communicate. Love for their father. It's personal, it's fervent. Its fervent nature ended up resonating with a wide audience, making it one of his most beloved songs. We covered that in detail as well. Fans would often tell him how much they connected with this song, and it became one of his enduring tracks. That one also went to number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it went to number 1 on the Adult Contemporary chart in 1982.
A gift I know I never can repay.
Dan had a lot of number 1 hits on the AC chart, and like I said, we covered this song in depth. I'll link to it below, but I can never talk enough about this classic song. Leader of the Band is a pivotal cut on The Innocent Age because it represents the love and encouragement that put Dan on his path for greatness. When he says, "Thank you for the freedom when it came my time to go."
Freedom when it came my time to go.
It referred to Fogelberg's decision to drop out of college. He was attending the University of Illinois, but he decided to leave mid-semester to chase his music dreams. Definitely not the news that most parents would want to hear. Most parents would have been upset, even bitter, and it would have affected the dynamic of that relationship. Although his father was disappointed, he supported Dan's choice. He encouraged him to give it a shot for a year. That gamble paid off.
Leader of the band this time, and his eyes are growing.
The fourth single from Dan Fogelberg's opus was Run for the Roses, which is another name for the prestigious Kentucky Derby. When asked why he wrote the song, Fogelberg simply said, and I quote, "I always wanted to come to the Derby. I've never been to the Kentucky Derby." At the time, he was living in Colorado and he was raising horses. He explained that the song was his way of expressing his love for horses. For me, the most genius lyric in the song is in the chorus. The chance of a lifetime and a lifetime of chance. At once describing the experience of horse racing and life itself.
And it's a run for the roses.
And you know what? The truth is, I couldn't care less about the Kentucky Derby. Don't care. But I do care because of Dan Fogelberg's voice. Seriously, this song has been used as an unofficial theme for the Kentucky Derby, but yeah, I encourage you to go back to that song with fresh ears. You'll have a newfound appreciation for the clever parallels that Dan intertwines in the song. Run for the Roses can be heard as a metaphor for growing up and realizing your potential. Fogelberg actually wrote the song well before deciding that The Innocent Age would be a 2-disc concept album. So cool. When it came time to sequence the tracks for The Innocent Age, he placed this one on side 2 of the first disc, where it represents the idea of coming of age. That, like I said, the single went to number 18 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it went to number 3 on the Billboard AC chart. It's another number 1 AC hit for Dan in Canada. The 4 singles from The Innocent Age are riveting demonstrations of Dan Fogelberg's genius for crafting story and song. But it's the sum of the parts, all 17 tracks, that really make this double album so extraordinary. I mean, each song brings a wealth of musicianship that is rarely, if ever, captured in today's recordings. I mean, in addition to Joni Mitchell, Richie Furay, Glenn Frey, Don Henley, Emmylou Harris, there's the voice of the Byrds bassist Chris Hillman. That's on the closing track, Ghosts. And that's really where this album comes together as a whole. It's the show-stopping final chapter. Ghosts, it's a haunting piece that invites listeners to picture the elusive spirits around us.
Sometimes in the night I feel it, near as my next breath.
The theatrical arrangement of Ghosts is a nod to Dan's lifelong love of the music of Mozart. The symphonic homage to his favorite artist, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and the inclusion of the UCLA choir, a final tribute to his father's leadership as a man and as a band conductor. Really, it's the perfect conclusion to a marvelous 1 hour and 20-minute feat. We've done like 5 videos on Dan Fogelberg, and I've always maintained he's truly one of popular music's all-time great vocalists. Rock, pop, soul, jazz, whatever. Truly the purest voice of his time. All these features have meant so much to me, and I was so excited to see that they meant something to you, because you really get the genius of Dan Fogelberg. Truly, the most underappreciated vocalist of all time, maybe. Dan hit his stride with Longer in '79, and then his next 9 singles were top 30 hits. Again, not many artists in the history of the Billboard Hot 100 have been able to do that.
I've been in love with you.
When I read that Dan didn't think The Innocent Age was, going to be a commercial success, he just didn't think it was commercial enough to sell in the record stores or hit the airwaves, I finally zeroed in on why his music has resonated so much with me, and maybe with you. Dan Fogelberg wrote what he felt. He wrote what was burning in his soul. This is what inspired his lyrics and his musical arrangements. There was no pretense, no commercial motive. He was gratified when fans connected with his music, but that was because what he created was so deeply personal to him. And by sharing it, he gave us, the fans, something that made our lives inspirational and joyful. What made his music truly special was its timeless quality. I mean, Fogelberg could write a ballad like Leader of the Band that spoke to family bonds, or a sweeping anthem like The Innocent Age, that explored life's bigger questions. And then a rocker like The Language of Love. His songs had a way of making listeners feel understood. And his ability to fuse introspective lyrics with captivating melodies and such a pure voice, it's what separated him from everybody else, truly.
The innocent day.
Dan Fogelberg's The Innocent Age stands as one of the most ambitious and deeply reflective albums of the early 80s. This is the truth. The double album captured the essence of life's journey. It's innocence, it's heartbreak, it's wisdom, and the bittersweet passage of time. I mean, this album is bursting with warmth and charm and character through beautifully crafted songs that explore coming of age, love, loss, and legacy. With contributions from musical greats like Joni Mitchell, Emmylou Harris, Don Henley, and Glenn Frey, The Innocent Age is a timeless masterpiece, offering listeners a deeply personal yet universally resonant experience. The Innocent Age should be put in historical perspective. What Dan Fogelberg achieved on this record, it's something only a few artists in the history of the rock era have accomplished. And he did it without MTV. He did it without heavy press or pop culture celebrity. Like I said at the beginning of this feature, in the early 80s, before Michael Jackson Thriller changed everything, opened the floodgates for having a lot of hits on one album, if you were lucky and you were a pretty big artists, you could get a couple of hits off one album. I mean, a few acts pulled off 3 or 4 hits from the same album in the 70s. Talking Fleetwood Mac, Rumors, Bee Gees did it. But in the early 80s, there were just a couple. From 1980 to 1982, 6 acts had 3 top 10 hits from the same album. It's John Lennon, Journey, Eagles, Air Supply, Michael Jackson, and Dan Fogelberg. But only 2 of those had a 4th top 20 hit, MJ and Dan. Yeah, the king of the early 80s were Michael Jackson and Dan Fogelberg. Yet Dan doesn't get the same treatment in history as some of those acts I just mentioned. But he deserves it. Honestly, Dan Fogelberg probably could have had another hit off the album. But he really wasn't a singles artist. In all, Dan only released like 21 singles. In fact, he released almost as many albums as singles. But for Dan, like I said, it wasn't about the hits. It was always about the songs. Sure, if he would have followed a formula of writing hit songs, he could have had dozens more. There's no doubt about it. But Dan made music that was composed in its purest, most genuine form, brimming with truth and compassion. And because of that, the music of Dan Fogelberg is eternal.
Like why each time the sky begins to snow.
Thanks for watching. When Dan passed in 2007, he was only 56. Sadly, there wasn't a lot of hoopla surrounding it, which is probably appropriate because Dan was such a private person. But his passing has left a big hole in popular music that, in my opinion, has never been filled. His work is just unparalleled. Leave us a comment about The Innocent Age. Go back and listen to this album, I'm telling you, from song 1 to song 17. It's a masterpiece. Leave us a comment about Dan Fogelberg, about his legacy, about his songs, about this album. Let's have a great celebration of all things Dan. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. It's about keeping the music alive through interview, through stories, through celebration. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.